ICQ Podcast episode 295, Hamvention 2019. Well, hello fellow Hamilton radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this our 295th episode of the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast. Supported this episode by John Stevens, Alpha Bravo 9, Juliet Sierra, Michael Ladd, Kilo Delta 2, Kilo Oscar Golf, Scott McDonald, Kilo Alpha 9, P for Papa, and his wife Sarah, Will Chrisman, Whiskey Delta 5, India, and Tig Carlson, Kilo 1, Sierra Echo, India, along with our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1MLB is joined by Leslie Golf 0, Charlie India Bravo, Bill November 3, Juliet India X-Ray, and Edmund Mike 0, Mike November Golf, to discuss latest amateur ham radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is our roundup of the things we saw at Hamvention 2019. Well, guys, a little bit of a long donation section this episode, but of course, this is very important to keep your show advert free. And along with our monthly and subscription donors, we need to thank some people we met here at Hamvention. So, Michael Ladd, Kilo Delta 2, Kilo Oscar Golf, met us at Dayton 2019, wanted to show his support for the team. So, thank you very much for your one-off donation, Michael. We'd like to thank Will Chrisman, Whiskey Delta 5 India, and Ty Carlson, Kilo 1 Sierra Echo India, who came up to us and gave a cash donation to us while at the show. So thank you very much, guys, and hope you appreciate the chat with the team members that you saw. We'd also like to thank Scott McDonald, Kilo Alpha 9 Papa, and his wife Sarah for the lovely Italian dinner, and more importantly, their hospitality and time in Chicago, which myself, Martin, Edmund, and Chris enjoyed, with them. So thank you very much for looking after us in Chicago and giving us lots of tips and things to do. We've also got a new subscription donor set up this episode, and John Stevens, Alpha Bravo 9, Juliet Sierra, set up a subscription donation and said, he set up a recurring donation to keep the show advert free, commercial free. Thanks for all your hard work for providing the show. So, John, thanks a lot for doing that for us. Well, we really do appreciate it. Now, guys, I know it sounds good. We've got such a great batch of donations there. But these are the things we need to pay our way. All our 8 presenters paid their own way to go to Hamvention. So, if you enjoy the show and certainly the Outer Sequence special we released last weekend, we need you to continue to support us. All you need to do is think about how much value you got for the show. Put a figure on it and visit icqpodcast.com/donate. As I say, any one of the options there will allow you to show your appreciation for the show and the work that your favourite presenter does for the show. Well, now we join Martin, Leslie, Bill, and Edmund to discuss latest amateur ham radio news, including the VOA Museum will host a D-Day event and outdoor antenna guidelines. As always, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment, stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, welcome to episode 295 of the ICQ News Roundtable and tonight's News Roundtable. Tonight, I'm joined by Miss Leslie Butterfield G0CIB. Hi Leslie, how are you doing?
Good evening, Martin, apart from take 3, is this? Okay. Oh, I'm a lot better, thanks. I wasn't too well a couple of weeks back. You know me, I couldn't even speak. That's why I couldn't come on the podcast. And I thought, then I went away for a week on a cruise and had wonderful food. But I'm much better, refreshed and raring to go.
Yeah, well, that's good news, mate. It's good news. And you're not supposed to give secrets away that I screw up now and again. Come on. I think those in Dayton saw me do it a couple of times as well. So don't worry about it. We also have Mr. Bill Barnes, N3JIX, and this time you're the same side of the pond as Edmund and I, aren't you, Bill?
Yes, actually, you're in a different time zone, which is kind of cool. But we were we were in the same time zone at one point. Anyway, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening, and good to have you. And I'm sure we'll tell a lot about our escapades in the next few minutes. We also have sitting next to me, well, we don't often sit next to while we're recording, but I have Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, so small house tonight because Ed Durant, DD5LP, who would have normally been with us tonight, flew back from Chicago yesterday, adamant he was going to be with us tonight. And we said, "Are you sure, Ed? Because, will have jet lag and you'll have travelled like 14 hours or something." And he went, yeah, I'll be on board. And I had an email from him about a quarter of an hour ago saying, "Sorry, guys, totally wrecked. The jet lag's just hit me." So Ed will be back soon. No problems at all on that one. So just a little thing from there. So Ed will be with us soon. Our first news story, the VOA, the Voice of America Museum, is going to host the 75th anniversary commemorations of D-Day on the 6th of June. So, Bill, I'm going to pass it to you first because this one's in your country, and let's see what you have to say about it.
This is a very interesting event going on. They're going to actually have it on Thursday, June 6th at 9 a.m. If you're in the Westchester, Ohio area, you can actually go attend the event. It's looks like it's run until noon, which will be really neat. The part that I know you're going to bring up soon is the fact that we've actually been there. We got to go there last Saturday night and check out the museum, and it's quite a sight to see. And I think that this little thing that they're going to come up here on June 6th is going to be a real nice event and bring notice to the things that they had to do to help with the various things during the war effort and stuff from the Voice of America broadcasting side. Very interesting museum.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Thoroughly enjoyed it as well. Leslie, unfortunately, didn't come with us, but there are other events happening, and also, if you'd like to comment on the Voice of America doing it. But what do you think about the VOA doing the commemorations for D-Day, the 75th anniversary for D-Day, and bearing in mind it's happening at other places around the world as well?
Well, I think it's very, very, very important that this be commemorated, Martin. And I'm glad the Voice of America doing it. I'm not sure whether the Belfast, do I recall somebody saying it's been commemorated on the Belfast as well? Not sure. Is that correct, Martin?
Yeah, HMS Belfast will be on between, it's a whole week, but HMS Belfast will be operating with a special event call sign. And my brain has just seized up. I mean, I can't remember what it is, but it will hold a special event call sign for this event.
I will urge people to listen out for these stations and try and to work them as possible. Like I said, it's there to commemorate the event itself, but obviously the number of soldiers that died. Very, very important. I'm just looking through it at the moment as well. So that's my thoughts on it, Martin. Over to you.
Right, no problems at all. And I seem to remember, but maybe I've got my geography totally wrong, there was a poster up on the wall that Hitler called the Voice of America the Cincinnati Liars because you could be heard into Europe. So a big power signal of that. Edmund, you were there. What do you think?
Yes, and they now wear that badge of Cincinnati Liars as a badge of honour, don't they? And I think there's even a beer been produced bearing that name. I had the great pleasure and good fortune of visiting the Voice of America Museum last weekend, and the hospitality and the welcome was second to none. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. So if you are anywhere in the local area and have the possibility of getting yourself to the Voice of America Museum, then I would strongly encourage anybody and everybody listening to this to make the trip.
Did you ask to borrow their amplifier by any chance?
You couldn't lift it, Leslie. Trust me.
I said that with tongue in cheek.
No. But what I do need to say about this, and this is very important, and I've left it till last, but it's just as important. The ICQ podcast team thank very much Amateur Radio Newsline guys. We were guests of the Amateur Radio Newsline guys at the Voice of America. Thoroughly enjoyed it. They took us along and they wanted us to see it. And we spent time with the Amateur Radio Newsline guys. So there is proof that the podcasters do get on, as you will obviously hear later on in the show when we met up with a number of them. So all in all, a very good place to go. And yes, they're commemorating the D-Day event, which is a very important date in history. Next news story, and I like this one. It's a nice feel-good. A record number of amateurs have passed their amateur radio exam in South Africa. So, yeah, go on, Leslie, you go first on this one.
Well, I went to South Africa many, many years ago. Remember the South African Radio Society in Johannesburg? And my friend Graham over there as well. He was a radio amateur. We met up and had a drink. But the thing is, this 167 is an awful lot. It's an awful lot of radio amateurs to get through, and it can only get better because if one radio amateur passes the knowledge on to another one, it's no longer 167. It's like 300, and that's when the hobby starts to flourish. So it's a really, really good progress on this, and they should be congratulated.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, mate. And it's nice to have this. Edmund, you've been picking up things on this.
There are 2 exam sessions per year in May and October. So if you put yourself in for an exam in June, for example, that's an awful long time to wait until the next exam rolls around. I know of amateurs in England. I was going to say this country, but right now this country is the States where I'm sitting. I've known of amateurs in England who have been vocal, shall we say, about having to wait a couple of days in order to get exam results. So given that there's almost a 6-month gap between exams, for that number of people to be patient enough to sit and wait it out is encouraging indeed. And to get that number through is also a good success. So yes, this is a good news story, isn't it, Martin?
I certainly agree, and getting people in. Now, come on, Bill. You guys have got more amateurs. Well, probably the second largest group of amateurs in the world, because I believe Japan, everybody and his dog's an amateur, because it's really, really popular out there. But what do you think about South Africans on this one?
I actually think we passed Japan not too many years ago because I read that somewhere. But anyway, South Africa, man, that's great. Everybody loves DX. More South Africans. Hopefully they'll get on HF or get on the digital modes and it'll be fun. One thing I was going to ask, there's other countries that do it this way where you have like 1 or 2 exam sessions a year and you have to go to 1 or 2 locations to be able to take them. Doesn't Ireland do something like this?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe Ireland do 2 exams a year. And when Leslie and I took our exams a long time ago, there were only 2 exams a year in the UK. So you could say in some ways they're behind the times, but it depends on the number of students and how far apart their students are. I mean, it's quite a big country. So I don't know. I'm not knocking them for it, but other countries have gone up to more frequent stuff, Bill.
Yeah, I was just wondering because that's I've heard, like I said, I've heard of this before in the past that this once or twice a year kind of examinations, but still, I'm just happy they have 167 who've registered, and I wish them all luck.
Well, that's more DX for you, Bill. More DX, and that's a good one. Moving to our next news story, CEPT annual radio interference statistics are out. And I think it's going to be some interesting reading for those of us who do a little check on what's been happening around the world. So I'm going to pass it to Edmund first because he's sitting next to me. Edmund, what do you think?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to read all of this in full because there are quite a few hyperlinks in the news story, but the one sentence that jumped out at me in particular reads, "It is notable that Ofcom found there weren't any cases of radio amateurs causing interference to other services." Now, I do realise that something being reported and something not happening are 2 very different things, but nevertheless, it's heartening, I think, that sentence above all others.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Good thing.
I actually read this article, and that's the one sentence that jumped out to me as well. It just shows that radio amateurs, they try and do the right things. If you get a complaint, you try and put things right. So when things go wrong, a report's made. So something must be going right here, I think.
Yeah, I've stopped using me 50,000 watt linear.
Your line of two on 2 meter sideband.
Yeah. Now, what you find is if I was using my 50 kilowatt linear, I think all the lights would go dim in South London every time you key that. I'm not being serious, guys. This is me ragging. I don't have a linear of any description. So there you go. But interesting. Bill, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I spent a little time reading this. This is very fascinating, just in general. I like how they sliced and diced the data, and I encourage everyone that when the show notes come out that you go and take a look at this. So the number one, interference thing reported was for the public mobile networks, all that's GSM and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that kind of makes sense. The biggest category was unknown/vanished. So that means it was stuff that just happened somewhere and then just went away. Those were the two big ones. The two lowest ones that reports were terrestrial video broadcasting on VHF and the satellite services. And I'm assuming that's from what I'm looking at, that's like the satellite. You're bouncing a signal off the satellite. Both of them sound like, okay, I would expect low interference for them just because of what they are. The other thing I saw that was interesting was they were talking about interference in meteorological radars, which are at 5.6 gigs to 5.65 gigs. This is a real issue. So these weather radars are, scanning the skies, doing their thing, trying to figure out where storm clouds and rain and energy is going on, and they use radar. Well, I know that Wi-Fi equipment I have has a block right in the middle where it says, well, you can use this if you're not getting interference. Well, this appears to be interference to the radars. So I'm very fascinated to read more on this about what the exact details of that are. Are people intentionally trying to jam the weather radars, or is it accidental, i.e., 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi equipment that's not type accepted, that's too much power, too much gain? That's why I'm going to spend a little more time after we're done reading here. After we're done talking here, reading.
You need to dig in the details and see what's occurring.
Yeah, because that one fascinates me in general, because that's something I run into. But on the other way around, where the weather radar is knocking out the 5 gig channels in the middle of the 5 gig Wi-Fi band over here. Well, especially if you live on a hill like I do. Mm. But that's why I just want to read that. So, because they had 214 cases reported in 2017, and a lot of these appear to be out of the UK. So, other countries in the EU. So I want to read a little bit more on that. And very interesting.
Yeah, certainly was, mate. Certainly was. So we need to digest this, but we think it's important to bring it forward so everybody could have a look and focus on the fact that it was available. So good stuff. Moving on, and this is probably going to be a short one today, but our last news story, because I'm sure we're going to natter quite a lot about what we've been up to. Our last news story is, you said this was a biggie in the States, Bill. Arizona Homeowners Association outdoor antenna guidelines, and you're saying if only you could have the same.
Yeah, in general, I mean, this sounded really good for what they are and what they were able to work out. They're talking about a 10,000 homeowners association. It appears to be later in life, retirement age or thereabouts kind of community, and they started negotiating with the HOA to try to get some accommodative exemptions for some amateur radio activity. And after discussing with the board and the members and all the other stuff, they were able to come up with any exemption, because a lot of people don't understand is a lot of HOAs, there's no exceptions, no accommodations, you're game over, move out. But this one, they're saying they're going to let amateurs that live in this community, they can use a flagpole vertical that doesn't go out 16 feet, verticals out back that don't go above 5 feet above the peak of the house, and wire antennas no higher than 5 feet above the roof peak. Yeah, no towers, no traps, no, rhombics in the backyard. I mean, okay, I get that one. But, the one thing I pointed out, like when we were discussing this, is if you look at the trees in my backyard that I actually have the antennas hanging in, which I have no restrictions, but the where I have the antennas hanging, I'm below the roof line anyway, because I have a 3-story house. So that's an okay deal as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just glad people are talking. I'm glad people are working together. I'm glad that they're working with their neighbors and they're trying to come to a good compromise where possible. And, this is up to 10,000 homes in this association. So that's a big, big group. So I think this is a good, positive story. Hopefully it starts to become a trend where they negotiate, work stuff out. And we never even have to worry about the Parity Act because they just figure this stuff out on their own.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Bill. And, we were all together ourselves last weekend in a house, 8 of us, and everybody got on great. And if you talk and communicate, things get worked out very, very quickly. And as you say, this may just be a very good way of bringing the country together by one group coming up with a sensible suggestion and other people adopting it. Leslie, I know you haven't worked with us, but looking at the real estate of some of the places over here, mate, we wouldn't have any problems putting up some of the areas we'd like. Some of them have massive plots of land. And I know you live in London like I do.
Everybody's in the shoebox here that costs $250,000,
Well, not mine or yours, mate. And I don't mean that nastily because everybody. But you know what I mean. It does. It does bring things. But what do you think about what they've done here?
Okay, Martin. I was involved in certain things to do with interference a couple of years back, or a few years back. And there's 3 ways to do things. The one way is the legal route, which I've always considered insane. It's the biggest way to lose all your money. And I've said it was crazy then. The second way is you get the word out to the politicians and representatives about radio amateurs, what they do, how we do it, how we can benefit them. Just push the word out there. And the third way is to actually get somebody on the board and to persuade, to sort of say, well, this is what we do. And I'm reading this story, and I'm looking at this, and what does come out there? It's a long process. It's about a lot of toing and throwing and coming backwards and forwards. I think they've done this mega smart. It's about a compromise. You're not going to get everything you want. We know that, but they've got it the right way. Just sit down and discuss, and come to a compromise. And this is really the smart way to do things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just as a little bit of an aside, my wife tends to watch Escape to the Country, where people move from towns into the country, one thing or another. And she looks at these places, and her and I both don't like beams on the ceilings, so we don't like old buildings. But I always say my requirement would be on top of a hill with a 60-foot mast. If I can't have that, I ain't moving.
You're not asking for much.
I picked out a nice crank-up tower at Dayton. I just can't afford it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Bill. They are good, but whether we can afford it or not, Edmund's going to say something.
I should just caution, though, that having a huge amount of land and an enormous tri-band at HF Yagi on a tower doesn't automatically solve all your problems, because as we were driving around the country and I was gawping out the window, I wasn't driving obviously, whilst I was looking at the scenery, I saw at least 2 amateur stations along the lines of what I just described, and their massive tri-band Yagis were pointing straight at overhead power lines, which seem to be far more popular in the US than they are in the UK, or in my part of the UK anyway. So don't think that oodles of land and a massive tower is automatically going to solve all your problems if you've got HT lines running alongside the border of your property and you have to point the antenna straight towards them to hear the DX.
Yeah, there you go. And if they had the internet overpower, that would be even worse. Anyway, that's enough of that. But well, that ends our news stories. Leslie, we're going to go to you first because we've been together, so we pretty much know what each other's done in the last few days. But go on, tell us what you've been up to since the last time, because you were off with your cold and your illness.
I was. You know what I was like, Martin. I was absolutely dreadful. But anyway, recovered a bit, and then I went away on a cruise. But I'm looking through all the terms and conditions. Yeah, it's just one of the things I do. And I wasn't allowed to take any amateur radio equipment. Sobsy in the corner. However, what I did manage to do, they said anything about taking mobile phones at all. So, Echo Link, and got the app on my phone and was speaking back to me mates in Chingford here via the local site. So even though I couldn't take any amateur equipment, I was still on the air, and I complied with what I was supposed to do. So that was via Echo Link. Not done much else because, anyway, back to work as we do. A bit of a downer when I got back to work, but hey, that's life. And here we are back in the seat, all raring to go.
Well, that's good, mate, and we're glad to have you back. We're glad to have you back, and I'm glad you're up and fine. The summer's arriving. We'll be out operating soon. I'm sure you'll be with your club, I'll be my club, and a lot will start to happen. So that'll be good news, Leslie. Bill, come on, you can go first. We decided that the Hamvention was your national show, yours, Dan's and Frank's. So what did you think of it?
This was actually my first time to attend the Dayton Hamvention, which is actually in Xenia, Ohio. Very impressed. It's the first time is almost overwhelming. There was a lot of vendors inside, a lot of flea market outside. I got a lot of steps in. We were lucky on the weather, and the food was good. We kept you under a certain amount of cups of coffee, but kept me over the amount of cups of coffee I need. So it was a good time. And you mentioned this earlier, and it's true. The amount of folks that came up and just said, "Oh, I listen," or "I know you," or "Hey, where's Leslie anyway?" It was amazing.
Thank you.
It was unexpected. To be blunt, I figured everybody would know who Martin is, and that's about it. But Ed and I were wandering around because we split up to scope the place out because there was just so much to look at. Ed and I were recognized by, 5 or 6 people. He was picked out for Amateur Radio Newsline and the podcast, which was good. And we had I had a good time. Yes, I agree. I don't think it's an annual trip because I almost needed a day off to recover, but I didn't. I came into work on Monday. But every few years, yeah, it was great time. We talked to a lot of folks. We talked to a lot of interesting people about the things they're doing. So it was amazing. And then finally, you think I would be done and amateur radioed out. But on Tuesday, one of the folks I follow on Twitter was looking for the grid square that I work in. So over lunch on Tuesday, I got out the satellite aero antenna, went up on top of the soccer field and worked K7 tab, TAB, KI7UNJ, and Don, KB2YSI, who we know from talking to various times in the past. So I actually got on the CubeSats, and of course it was an AO91 pass. It's in the middle of the day, beautiful weather out. It was like verbal melee to get on that sat, but it was a nice 15-minute pass. So that's all I've been up to.
Yeah, that's all you've been up to, Bill. Come on, that's just a lot.
I forgot to throw in there, the tuner I bought at Dayton works great.
Well, we wouldn't expect. Now, amateurs wouldn't stitch another amateur up, would they? So we wouldn't expect that. Edmund, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Go on, tell us about what you've been up to and your Dayton.
Well, I almost don't know where to start because I could talk about the highlights for half an hour and I would still miss out things and people. The largest event I've ever attended before this weekend is possibly a third of the size of Dayton. So it was almost overwhelmingly large physically, the event, but it was wonderful. It was mind-blowing. In terms of meeting people, I think the two highlights were meeting Dave Castler, Kilo Echo Zero OG, who, if you don't know, records instructional videos on YouTube every so often, has a really useful series called Ask Dave that I do recommend highly to everybody. He's an amateur extra, but even if you've been an amateur extra for decades, I guarantee if you start watching his videos long enough, sooner or later you will learn something that you didn't know previously. So very pleased to meet him, especially as he was not sure a few months back if he would even be coming to Dayton or not. The other highlight was meeting the antenna hair girl, who I'm sure some of you will have heard of or seen the photos. And what I didn't realise to begin with is that not only is her hairdo very pretty to look at, it's actually a functioning transmitting antenna on 2 meters. Connected to it, she had a Baofeng UV3R on the low power setting, so that's about 750 milliwatts. In the literature, they tell you it's 100 milliwatts, but it's not. It's a bit more than that. So she puts 3/4 of a watt through that and can communicate with everybody at Hamvention. And I actually found her talkback frequency and was able to kind of geolocate her based on what she was saying. So those are the two highlights. In terms of doing things, may I put on record my thanks to the Dayton Amateur Radio Association, DARA, who very kindly allowed me to operate their special event station, Whiskey 8 Bravo India. Originally, I was intending to be on for 15 minutes and maybe talk to 2 or 3 people. It ended up being over an hour and worked nearly a dozen people on 40 meters, but above 7.2 megahertz. Now, somebody who's only ever operated in the UK, operating legally between 7.2 and 7.3 under DARA supervision, of course, that felt wonderfully odd in a good way. 40 meters wasn't in great shape, but there was perseverance, so managed to get some call signs in the log. After that, the VOA Museum we visited, and the transmitter site of WLW was really interesting. And Leslie, get this, a Harris transmitter producing 50 kilowatts, or slightly over. It was nearer 51. They're licensed for a bit more than that, I think. SWR 1-to-1, reflected power 0 watts.
Did you say 50 kilowatts?
Yep, 50 kilowatts.
Wow.
It's 50 kilowatts now. In days of yore, with the big transmitter in the next room, they had been up to 0.5 megawatt at one time or another. But these days it's 50 kilowatts, SWR 1-to-1, reflected power 0. How's that? Almost sounds like a really big football score, doesn't it? But that's a really great setup they've got there. And here in Chicago, I did have a listen on 700 kilohertz. There was a bit of noise on that frequency, mainly due to the electronics in the house that we're sitting in right now, I think. But WLW was very listenable. It was coming in nicely on my XH data little portable radio. So it doesn't half travel well as well. They've got a really nice antenna system at WLW. So went on HF at Dayton. Also thanks to Frank, I think it was, who brought along his FT891 and did a bit of portable operating from using that from Lebanon in Ohio. And we did a SOTA summit. Me and Ed Durant, DD5LP. Really bad rainy weather, so Ed had to pull out on the HF side of things, unfortunately. But using handheld and a ridiculously large telescopic antenna,
I remember seeing a picture of you on Facebook with a handheld and some ridiculously long antenna.
7/8 wavelength, base loaded on 2 meters. Also doubles up as a fishing rod. But I stuck that on top of my handheld, and it took about an hour to do it. But I managed to get the 4 contacts to get the 4 points on 2 meters FM with roughly 15-minute intervals of calling CQ between each contact. And somebody who shall remain nameless said if that had been me, I would have switched off and gone home long before I got the 4 contacts. So, I perennially give the advice, even if a band is empty, call CQ anyway. I'm going to reword that slightly to keep calling CQ over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter if you have to do it for 20 minutes before somebody talks to you. If you stick at it long enough, eventually somebody will come back. So that's a selection of my highlights. There are many others I'm sure I could have mentioned if I met you, or if you extended kindness or hospitality to me, and I can't off the top of my head remember it. I do apologise, but it has almost turned into a bit of a blur. So many things have happened in such a short space of time. As much as I would love to do it, I can't remember it all. But if I came across you at Dayton, or if you let me operate your station, or if you worked me on the air, or if you emailed me or whatever, and I can't remember it, then it's nothing personal. And thank you. And one final thing I'll say, and then I promise I'll shut up. This isn't about Dayton. This is about special event stations. D-Day was mentioned, and I could see special event stations relating to D-Day being more of interest to listeners worldwide than just run-of-the-mill special event stations from the UK and France. So if, in case you don't know, if you're looking for special event stations from the UK to do with D-Day, you are looking for call signs that start GB, Golf Bravo, followed by 1 number, followed by 2, but more commonly 3 letters. And very often the number will be 0, 2 or 4, but other numbers can be used instead. If you're looking for French special event stations that might relate to D-Day, then you're looking for call signs that start with TM, Tango Mike, followed by 1 number, followed by more than 1 letter. If you hear one with just 1 letter after the number, then it is almost certainly a short contest call sign. But if you hear a call sign that is, for example, Tango Mike 0 Alpha Bravo Charlie, that will be a special event station. If it's Tango Mike 0 Alpha, that will be a contest station. So don't go after that one if you're looking for D-Day related special event stations. And after having given a really long monologue, I promise I'm now going to go QRT and pass the microphone back to Martin.
It sounds like you had a ball.
Ball doesn't come into it, Leslie. It was undescribably good. I mean, I now know where Edmund disappeared to when we couldn't find him for over an hour. I should have known he was probably operating somewhere, but we did lose Edmund for a period of time. Now,
I checked up on him. He was at the special event station.
All right, Bill. We were looking after each other. Now, at the risk of upsetting Frank, and I don't think I'll ever do that because we get on so well as a group anyway, all of us. But Colin described Frank and I as a couple of naughty toddlers wandering around the show together. I mean, we were like, we were probably the 2 oldest in the group, and we just had a whale of a time. And so it was great fun. So it was good fun with Frank, and I got to operate a number of times using my US call sign with my handy talkie. So it's worthwhile having the license. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Much more will come out in some of the things that the guys did. But all in all, great fun. Out at Dayton, we met up with Russ and Cheryl from the Linux in the Ham Shack. Yeah, we met up with Jeremy and George at the Amateur Radio Workbench group, and really nice guys. The poor wife was in the corner trying to talk to the public, and Jeremy and George were at the back with about 8 people wearing orange T-shirts.
I was going to say, we accidentally flash bombed their booth.
Our flash bomb was absolutely total. But nice guys, all the same. We met up, well, I certainly met up with the Ham Nation guys and had a bit of a chat. Everything's good. And the Amateur Radio Newsline guys that took us to the VOA. So, the podcasters do tend to work together. I don't think there's tremendous amount of competition. We're in it for the fun, I think you'll find. So, all in all, I'm going to not talk much more about Hamvention because the guys, this will come out over the next few weeks as well. But I think the greatest thing for me for the show was to meet up with our American presenters face to face in the same room, and to talk to a number of our listeners if they were interested. And I over-exceeded on both of those. We had great fun back at the house as a group of us, and it was really nice to have people go, "Oh, you're Martin from the ICQ podcast," or "Oh, you're one of the ICQ boys." And I know the rest of you are having the same thing. Apart from, and please guys, if you're at another Hamvention, don't forget Dan. Dan said nobody came up to him when he was on his own. So, bit of a shame, really. But Dan was there. Dan was teaching as well. So that was good. So all in all, an absolute great time was had by all. I think that's fair. Well, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight on this podcast, episode 295. We're getting dangerously close to the 300. So something else Colin and I are going to think about fairly soon, what we can do for 300. But tonight, I'd like to thank Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB.
It's been a blast, Martin, and especially listening to everyone's adventures at the Hamfest. I'm absolutely awed.
That's great, mate, and great to have you. I'd like to thank Mr. Bill Varnes and N3JIX.
Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciated visiting with everybody over the weekend.
Yeah, it was a great time. And Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG, sitting next to me.
Portable in W9 land, 7-3 to you all.
Yeah, 73's all.
73's.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BOY. We start with an email from Stefan Lamata, 2 Echo 0 Foxtrot Kilo Mike, who has asked us if we can let everyone know that registrations are now open for the British Inland Waterways on the Air event for 2019. So we're going to pop a link to this on the ICQ podcast website where you can sign up. But importantly, and guys, get your pencils, calendars and Google calendars ready here. The event takes place on the 24th to the 26th of August 2019, which if I remember rightly is the UK bank holiday weekend. So you can join Stefan and everyone else on the British Inland Waterways, as I say, on that event taking place in late August. We also got a mail in as well from the Government Communications Amateur Radio Club. They are working on 2 special event stations to celebrate the centenary of the Government Communication Headquarters, GCHQ. GCHQ is the Signals Intelligence Agency and is the organisation that was formerly based at Bletchley Park during World War II. So they're going to be having 2 events. They'll be taking place between 0800 to 1600 UTC on the 21st July. And they've also got a backup date as well of the 5th of July in case of bad weather issues. The call sign you're going to be looking for is GB100 GCHQ, and that's going to be taking place from the organisation's headquarters in Cheltenham, Gloucester. Now, the second call sign, GB100 GCB, will operate from the organisation station in Bude in Cornwall. Operations will be primarily on HF, using a mixture of voice, CW and data modes. Some VHF, UHF data mode operations may also be possible, so keep an eye out for the DX cluster information of which bands and mode stations to use. So good luck, guys, with your special event, and just let you know that they're going to be confirming contacts via EQSL and Logbook of the World as well. Now, if you want a paper QSL card, there's an address to send it to their QSL manager, which again we'll have on the ICQ podcast website. And we wrap up in Australia, where the Amateur Radio Society of Australia has written to the regulator proposing a trial allocation of the 60-metre band. And they're suggesting using commercial allocation at 5351, at 5355 and 5360 kilohertz, using USB with a maximum 2.8 kilowatts bandwidth and a 15 watt transmit power. So they're looking, as I say, to get that push through to get Australia on the air. And this, as I say, is to try and bring Australia in a long line with other parts of the world, notably Europe, USA and New Zealand. So good luck, guys, on getting that trial in place. Well, now we head over to our feature this episode, which is the interviews we recorded from Hamvention 2019 with the crew that we had with us in Dayton, Ohio. I hope you enjoy.
And now, what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Well, hey everyone, this episode's feature are the remaining interviews for after our special episode last week from Hamvention 2019. We start off with Chris Howard, Mike 0TCH, who interviewed Andy from SDR Play about the new software updates for the SDR Uno.
Good morning, Andy.
Hiya, how you doing, Chris?
How was day one?
Yeah, it was very busy, very busy. We were inundated with questions all the time. So yeah, it was just great. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I believe there's been some things that have moved on a little bit with the SDR Play and the SDR Uno software. So we've got a few things. Maybe you can tell us about what's in the latest version, then we'll move on and look at the new things coming along.
Sure. So in the recent few weeks, we've introduced scanning to SDR Uno. This was a long time coming, and we took quite some time to get it right, and we've done some tweaks to that as well. So now we think we've got a pretty decent scanner. The feedback that we've had from people that use it have really enjoyed it, and we'll still evolve it over time and improve it. But it's I think it's been a really great addition.
Yeah, I got to say, I downloaded it as soon as it came out. I use it, and I think it's fantastic. So and I think you can, from what I've seen of it, you can either scan a range of frequencies or you can scan spot frequencies.
That's right. So you can set up your own custom preset scans, or you can select ones that are already in there. Like we've got like the air band or marine band, and just press it and go, and then just sit and watch it. It does an airband scan in about 2 seconds, and then the second mode is that you can then scan the memory panel. Yeah. So you can either have a list of frequencies that you've created, or even a list of frequencies that the scanner has also created.
Yeah, I'm going to say I like that feature. So you kind of set it going to go and find the frequencies where things are happening, and then it'll save it by itself. Yeah. Memories, and you go back and you scan those. So I really like that.
And then if there are frequencies that you don't want to stop on, we have a lockout feature, so you can just ignore them and carry on.
Yeah, so that's really good.
It's been a great addition, and we've had a lot of great feedback on that.
That's great. So is there anything else in the latest version that you want to talk about?
We've made some improvements. We're sort of using the low AF mode a lot more. I think it's an easier mode to use. You don't have the zero AF DC spike to worry about, and most of the bands that people look at are they're not bigger than 2 megahertz wide. So it just seems to be more of a natural mode to start with. But we've got a lot of improvements to come on that and some other features as well.
Sure. Now, it's been a year since you released the RSP Duo, and I think you were saying to me earlier, you've got some exciting new software coming out shortly, which will really utilise that hardware.
Yeah. So the neat thing with the RSP Duo is, of course, you've got the dual tuner and they're time and phase synchronous. So we produced an API for people to use to do some things like diversity, noise cancelling, direction finding software, which some people have gone and done. But we always knew that we had to really incorporate that into SDR Uno. And so the first version of Uno to support that fully will be out in a couple of weeks' time, and that's 1.32, and we have a version of that here running the demonstration of that.
Okay, cool. We'll have a look at that in a second. Okay, so we'll just move the camera around just so we can see the screen. So Andy, so we're now looking at this new version that's just coming out in a few weeks' time. Can you perhaps talk us through some of the new features then?
Yeah, so in I don't know how well this is going to work, because off-air signals are difficult to show this working very well. But basically, in single tuner mode, what we can do here is see the signal on both tuner 1 and tuner 2.
And this is on the RSP Duo.
RSP Duo, and we've got 2 FM antennas spaced about 1 metre apart. And then when we move into diversity mode, so now we're in diversity mode. We've got dual gain control here on the in the main window, and we've also got this circle over here, which is showing the phase and amplitude relative between the two streams. And we have two modes. So the first mode is an automatic mode, and what this is doing is constantly measuring the amplitude and phase difference between the two streams, and is showing the optimum values to give you the best SNR.
Okay, so diversity is all about getting the best possible signal based on having multiple, or in this case two aerials.
Yes, so we've got two identical inputs, just spaced slightly apart, and the basically diversity. What diversity gives you is that when you combine the signal, you get an increase of 6 dB. But when you combine the noise for the two tuners, because they're uncorrelated, it only increases by 3 dB. So you get a net 3 dB improvement in the signal to noise. It is somewhat difficult to show it with an off-air demonstration in this environment. And really, diversity really comes into its own in a mobile environment where you've got a moving
very dynamic.
Dynamic signal environment. If you monitored the two independent tuners and then the combination, and then ideally the software would select between to give you the optimum signal to noise ratio out of those 3 different options. So we have it running currently in automatic mode. But if I turn off automatic mode, I now can select any phase and amplitude combination around this circle, so I can manually sort of move around until I get the highest SNR.
So it's essentially what you're doing is you're adjusting the setup to try and look at the numbers, seeing which is the kind of showing you the best signal,
Yes.
and then you can start to.
So really, what you want to do is keep looking at the SNR number and see how that changes with a different phase angle, with a different phase value. And then when you've got the best SNR you can get, you can then increase the amplitude and see if that can give you an increase in SNR. And then the acid test to see if we've got the right value is that if you go 180 degrees away from where you are, you should then be able to cancel the signal out. And it's what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting out some videos with this from we've got a signal generator demo that shows this in a much clearer.
Kind of, that'll be useful.
Explain to people exactly what's going on and how it can be beneficial to them.
Yeah, and I can see it can be a real benefit in certain situations. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's diversity. We know you've been talking about it for a while now, which is great, and it's here. It'll be here very soon. Anything else that's new coming out in this new version? Yeah,
so in a couple of weeks' time we'll have the diversity version out with some bug fixes and some other improvements, and then the version after that is going to be a big change We've got a plug-in environment coming, so people can create their own demodulators and decoders to fit inside Uno and take the full advantage of the power of SDR Uno. And we're also going to be adding remote server client support within SDR Uno, and the server can be any platform, so it'll be any platform to SDR Uno. And we're also going to be adding some features to make it a bit easier for people to use, to just pick up and run, with still maintaining some of the power behind SDR Uno for some of the power users.
Yeah, because I guess you've got people that really want to push it as far as they can and want to use every new feature there is. But then you've also got to remember people that just beginners that want to just be able to, listen to the basics.
That's right. I mean, we have a complete cross-section of people. Some people just want to put a frequency in and press play. Other people really want to tune and tweak SDR Uno to get what they consider to be the most optimum performance out of it. And it's kind of getting that balance right between the two sets of community. And then once that version's out, then we're going to be the drive is to go towards cross-platform.
So that's what, Linux, Mac, that sort of thing?
Linux and Mac and Windows. That's the plan.
So it'll be SDR Uno looking the same across the...
It'll be a uniform look across them. They'll all operate. Every version of Uno that we've done to date has had a change to make that possible.
Okay.
It's been a Windows development for so many years, so it's had a lot of things like the registry embedded in there, an OmniRig, and as we go cross-platform, so each version towards cross-platform, we've moved it more compatible to be compiled on other platforms.
And I'm guessing you're going to have Mike, who's here today. We saw Mike a couple of years ago, to do videos and things to help people to learn and that sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, so Mike will be doing a lot of usability videos for people. I think Steve will be doing some as well, and he'll probably unfortunately hear my voice on a few of them.
That'd be good.
So we just try and do a bit of a mix of different aspects of it.
And it's still got that community. I know there's the Facebook group there and the real community around the products and things are going on.
Yeah, we've got the forum on the website has really gained quite a pace recently. There's a lot of good questions and help from the community helping itself really on there, as well as obviously the Facebook groups, which have been such a valuable resource for people and for us to kind of keep touch with people's views, and we always like to hear how people are using the software and future enhancements that they'd like to see. We can't always guarantee that they'll be in there, but we certainly listen and we certainly read all the comments and feedback that we get.
Fantastic. So Andy, if people want more information, where would they go?
Go to our website, sdrplay.com. Up on the top right hand corner you'll see contact links. John Hudson does a great blog on there as well. He keeps everybody up to date with everything that's going on. There's links to reviews, and don't take our word for it. Go to eham.net. There's some great reviews on there. There's just the easiest way to contact us is just sdrplay.com.
Brilliant. Andy, thanks again. Have a great show, and hopefully we'll get to busy later on for you. We'll see.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.
Hello, this is Frank, K4FMH, Fox Mike Hotel with the ICQ podcast, with the Hamvention 2019. And looky here, there used to be an old TV show where one of the stars said, Alice, to the moon, Alice. And we're going to go to the moon today. I think my guest, Ray Novak, is going to tell us, using an ICOM transceiver that's just been released very recently, how we can go to the moon and back. Ray, glad to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Frank. Yes, we debuted at Tokyo Ham Fair a couple years ago, the IC 9700. And when you say to the moon and back, we're talking about Earth-Moon-Earth communications, EME. The 9700 is a 2-meter 440, 1.2 gig, all-mode base station, satellite functionality, direct sampling for VHF and UHF, a single down conversion from 1.2 down to about 330 megahertz. So it is the industry's first direct sampling transceiver for VHF, UHF use.
Well, one of the things I've been impressed about, I've been a shortwave listener for decades, and I've looked at your receivers, and you have had perhaps not the profile that your product deserves, but in my humble opinion, you have had some of the best shortwave receivers, and I'm talking about professional class, almost NSA quality, and I think it hasn't gotten the product review that it deserved. Here's what I'm hearing. This is following in the footsteps of all that development, and you put that in a package that hams, who are now more and more excited about working sats. We got more sats up there to work. Earth, moon, earth bounce. We've got more technology, more education and discussion. And here's what I'm hearing. Now we got a box all in one where you can do it all.
Just about do it all. The 9100, its predecessor, covered HF6, 2, and 440. This picks up at 2 meters and goes up, but its matching twin, the 7300, adds 6 meters. So when you take a look at doing VHF contesting, which a lot of younger hams are getting into it because of the technical license for the U.S., but also it's easier to win at a VHF contest. You don't have to have the huge stacked arrays, the acreage of beverage antennas, the 4 squares that the guys that are winning the HF contests have. VHF, you can become a rover and have a fabulous time operating 6 meters, 2 meters, 432, and 1.2. And I actually did a VHF contest in January and had the 2 radios stacked. I talked to somebody on 6 meters, asked them if they had 2, moved to the 2 meter frequency, moved to the 432, all right there together. And I could be monitoring 6 meters when I went through the other 2 bands to see if there were more in the pile up to do the exact same thing. And it becomes fun when you get that technique going. But there again, that's only one phase of the hobby that this radio covers.
Well, you know, just to put it so that people like me can understand it, I go back to the Forrest Gump movie, and he described he and his girlfriend going together, hand in hand, like peas and carrots. And that's what I'm hearing. These 2 rigs go together like peas and carrots, as we might say in our neck of the woods.
Yes, sir.
Ray, look, ICOM has continued to innovate. And tell us a little bit, let's switch subjects just a little bit. What's going to be new on the D-Star front? What's your sense, and what can you talk about today? Because I have affectionately called you in previous interviews the Pied Piper of D-Star, and you have, by that, you have played that flute and sung that tune, and you have led ham radio into the first real digital voice mode. And so D-Star has been out there, and ICOM has continued to innovate. What's next for D-Star?
Well, it's going to draw us back to this 9700 because we got VHF, UHF 1.2. So I see emergency communications groups adopting this radio because you've got analog and D-Star in the radio. So you could have 2 meters on a VHF analog frequency. You can do D-Star and UHF on another one. Or if you're moving everybody on a D-Star and running programs like DRATs to move some of your traffic and looking at where your assets are deployed because of the GPS, the 9700 has the 128K bit per second data.
Right.
Now, you take a look at the guys going, well, we can do faster than that on 2.4, and in the U.S., our ham license gives us 2 of those channels. But if you have a large event like what happened in 2005 on the Gulf Coast,
Right.
You're going to have all these agencies coming in that's going to suck up the commercially available off-the-shelf 2.4 gig Wi-Fi equipment. We got 1.2 that is ours. And at 128K bits per second, it sounds slow nowadays, but 10 years ago, an ISDN data rate was very desirable. You can do that with this radio. And you need to download a file from a server that you've got somewhere, you can do it. It's very quick to do it versus any of the other data modes out there. And then you take a look at the congestion that you'll have on your Wi-Fi frequencies.
One of the things about what you've talked about with MCOM is that in the U.S., FirstNet is sort of the federal government's partnership with the contract winner AT&T to build a hardened system. And what's going to happen, as Ray was talking about, is it's not that it will fail. It will appear to fail if your cell number does not have priority. And they have a priority set of codes in that, and they're doing some testing on that now. And most of this is out in public domain. What I'm hearing Ray say is this, that for hams, where we try to fit in those niches where things do fail, and something will fail, and it will fail terribly, unfortunately. We just did a show on the podcast over in the Pacific Rim where hams came to the day in a fairly underdeveloped country, and they were able to fill in the gaps, and we were able to tell that story. So this rig will give MCOM hams the ability to use D-Star at 1.2 and move data where perhaps Arden and what they're doing in microwaves will work and assist, but you're going to have the familiar D-Star capability with voice and data at 1.2 gigahertz. Fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Very good. And this is shipping as fast as you can get them out the door?
Yes, sir, they are.
Very good. And they're available everywhere ICOM stuff ships.
Hope so. If not, they soon will be, because the dealers order them like crazy too.
Good deal. Hey, is that it? Cut it? Can't hear. All right, I'm sorry. I kept the microphone. So now, they are available and they're shipping now.
Yes, sir. They are. If a dealer doesn't have one, we've got them in stock so they can ship quickly.
Very good. Listen, you've heard it here from Ray Novak at ICOM at Hamvention, and this is Frank K4FMH for the ICQ podcast team.
Well, it wasn't just Frank who got to speak to ICOM at Hamvention. Martin, M1RB, also spoke to Ray regarding ICOM's remote control software.
Ray said to me while we were walking around the show, he said, "You haven't seen this. We can control our rig from across the internet and show you more." So we got two monitors connected to this lovely radio, the IC7610, and Ray's going to give us an overview of what it can actually do.
Yes, sir. What we're showing here is two different sessions going on. We've got a nice little, it's funny, it's a video game computer. So we have multiple outputs for monitors, a very high-end processor. So one of the things that we're doing is we're demonstrating the RSBA1 software. There's two parts to it. One is over the internet control for audio and rig control, and then the second part is the remote control.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you can do is you can close the ICOM control part of it and use the audio and modulation coming through the Ethernet to your favorite logging software.
Yeah.
So if you want to do your digital modes and things like that. So we are going through the Ethernet jack here, so this is simulating. Now the other part of it is using the USB 3 port, which gives you your IQ output.
Right.
Your IQ output, then you can see your different signals. Like, as you can see, I go between the two monitors. The mouse over here can control the radio.
Yeah.
And then when I move over to this area, then I'm controlling a third receiver separate from the main one.
Right.
So I can click on this frequency and then demodulate that. I can change the mode, all of it coming from the IQ output.
Right. So that's very interesting. So this piece of software this side I've seen before. That's not ICOM proprietary, is it?
No, sir, it's not.
That's a standard piece of SDR software, which looks very, very good. But to be able to do all those sort of things and remotely is very, very important these days, because I think more and more people want to be able to operate, say, at lunchtime when they're on their lunch break, or if they go off on a business trip. They don't want to be carting a big radio like this and putting up a tower and a massive antenna. You want to operate, don't you?
Yes, you do want to operate. And then as we click over on this side, I can then tune the radio, and you can see how the frequency shifted. Now, the 7610 has two receivers, and we have dual watch turned on. I can then close or bring up the second band scope, so I can look at a different segment of that band. So, or if I'm running split, I got to remember, there we go, there's split. I can then be watching both sides of a pileup.
Yeah. So that's very clear, and that's the first time I've seen running split and two receivers running at the same time on the screen. So that looks very interesting to me, and it's the first time I've come across it. But certainly being able to push your audio through, control the rig, and be able to generally do pretty much everything you can do at home if you were sitting in front of the radio. I don't think there's anything you can't do, is there?
No, sir, there's really not. And while we do not do RTTY or FT8 or JT64, because of this module, and you can see on the screen, there's the RSBA1 remote control and then the ICOM remote utility. The remote utility allows you to bring the audio from the sound card of the radio in to drive your other data modes. So if you've got that rare one that you've missed, You can operate from anywhere in the world. You can use the knob to change the frequency. So there you go right here. An easy way of controlling. You got your push to talk, and it becomes a very nice interface to use.
Well, I'm certainly impressed with it, and it certainly looks great. I think this is the way a lot of amateurs are going to operate in the busy world we're in these days. And certainly, if you've got a quiet contest location, it makes sense to put your radio in that quiet contest location when you work from home or on your lunch break or whatever. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think you nailed it. So, thanks for that, Ray. Any last things you want to say about it?
Well, I appreciate you guys coming over here and giving me the opportunity to share some of the love that we have in the U.S. for the ICOM products. And I appreciate what you guys do for the podcast and sharing with giving back to the hobby. So I appreciate that as well.
Well, thank you very much. Listen, thanks very much for your time, Ray.
Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. B here. The guys thank you very much for your downloads. However, there are a few things that would help the ICQ podcast to continue to grow. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need you, and it's free. 73's Mrs. B.
Well, much of the stuff we saw at Hamvention was product related. Ed Durant caught up with Sterling Mann and had a chat with him about the Youth Amateur Radio Club and its impact on bringing more young people into the hobby.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm here with Sterling Mann at the Hamvention, and he's well known for his involvement with a lot of things to do with youth in amateur radio. And the one particular thing I want to ask you to cover for our viewers and listeners is the youth contesting program.
Mm-hmm. So we started the Young Amateurs Radio Club, the GCARC, I think almost a year ago, and it's blossomed into this online group of youngsters, mostly high school age, but anywhere between like the ages of 15, 13, all the way up to college age. And here I am at 27. And it's a group, and we've started to try to figure out like what kind of stuff we can do. And I'll go back to like one of my first experiences in contesting is learning about this radio station that was about 3 miles as a crow flies from my parents' house. But Ward Silver, N0AX, actually connected us. I would have never known about his shack and his contest station had he not connected us together. So, and he had a big station, 1,500 watts, 2 stations, a big opti-beam tower, all the 9 yards. And it was a treat to really like work a contest from some station that is actually competitive. It doesn't have to be a big gun station, but it was competitive. Yagi and 1,500 watts, and that really got me going. So
Can I just jump in there and point out, some of the listeners will be saying, well, yeah, there is already a organisation that sends youngsters to the big gun stations, but this is something else in your case, isn't it?
This is the same idea, but at scale. We want to have the owners of those contest stations, contest grade stations, anywhere between, like, even if you have like a couple wires but you're in a real low noise environment, all the way up to like K3LR size, to sign up to join basically an open shack database saying, here we are, and we also send a notification out to all these young hams who applied to actually work at those stations. And the name of the game is to have like a station within a day's drive, like maybe a 3-hour drive at most, to be able to drive in, get settled in and work from that station as a contester, and also have like the contest station owner and maybe a few Elmers there to educate and train and show them the ropes and that sort of thing. The programs that they have are like the mega stations, and it's a super big event, but we are trying to empower like the average Joe ham with the average Joe contest station to be able to do the same thing for young hams in his like region and local community.
But if I can draw a parallel to like dating sites and things, it's almost like that. You're matching up young hams against mentors that have a station, a competitive station, for a contest, so that the knowledge can be passed on.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the most critical things with that is getting the young person a way of victor into a contest scenario. And I think personally, I was at the contest dinner or contest forums yesterday for the Contest University, and Bryant, KG5HVO, had a bunch of really good points about how young people, they need all that exposure. They need that motivation. There's a lot of distractions out there, and if we can provide a very healthy and flexible and also highly integrated environment, and in terms of like other technologies, for example, like live scoring, and live contest scoreboard.com, I think. That entices youngsters to see like parallels between what they see in their daily lives as well as contesting, and that leads on to like more and more opportunities and getting jobs even, and I think it's one of our best vectors of getting young people into ham radio, and also the other way around is getting youngsters involved in ham radio, which helps them become a better person, right?
Yeah, and I think you're trying to put the excitement back into getting involved in amateur radio. What about the YOTA program? That's in Europe or in IARU Region 1, quite successful for larger groups of amateurs, not contest related, but radio related, and like a summer camp in some ways.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to see that getting into North America?
Absolutely. So the whole reason why Sam Rose, KC2LRC, and I went to Austria in 2016 is to collect information and learn their ways of how they run the group and how they run the camp for 5 or 7 days all over Europe, and how their really successful program came to be, all in efforts to bring it over to the other regions, so Region 2 in our case. So finally I can say, like, upcoming soon. We haven't quite reached the go no go stage yet, but we're like in big planning stages for YOTA camp in the US. A smaller version. We want to start small so we know what we're doing. We keep control of the chaos, because as you know, like with every organization and event, things go wrong, things go haywire. We forget to do this, we forgot to do that. Oh, we left Jimmy at the airport, somebody go driving it, and figure out all these like roadblocks so that we can grow a similar, almost identical kind of camp here in the U.S. and the Americas.
Well, that's great news. I mean, that's something I think a lot of people will benefit from. Also being able to take part on the volunteering side of that to help at these events, and starting small and growing is always a good direction, in my opinion. Anything else on the youth front you want to tell us about? Because I know you're a busy person and need to get off to another presentation soon.
Yeah, I feel like every year we come up with newer and newer ideas, and I'm seeing like more and more involvement. Like looking at the Ham Radio 2.0 Lounge right across from us is First Robotics, the Youth Tech supported by the Dayton Hamvention and the Dayton Area Amateur Radio Club, doing like kits and soldering. I think in the U.S. we're seeing a resurgence, and especially with the Young Amateurs Radio Club, we've now been able to see like there are a lot of young hams in America and they're all fractured, they're all over the place, they're disjointed, and we've been trying with the YARC group to connect them all together using Discord, which is a chat program that gamers use. Yeah. And so as you'd expect, there's a lot of young people on there, and it's very interesting because they're growing like by the hundreds. We're currently up to about 800 members. 100 of them are online at every given moment, and that's kind of our pool of young people who we can like push on to like the youth contesting party, our QSO party events we have, and other things that we're trying to spool up. So having that online thing is a new thing, and I think a lot of, regions can benefit from it too.
Okay, do you have a website where people can go for more information on that?
It's YARC.world, Young Amateurs Radio Club, YARC.world.
Okay, thanks. Well, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for the interview. Really appreciate it. And good luck with all the projects. 73.
73, thank you.
It's nice to meet up with a friendly face from my side of the pond. Graham from BHI. How you doing?
Not too bad, Martin. How are you?
Well, apart from our interesting trip over yesterday, pretty good. Always the same story with us. We always arrive dead late. But great show, I think, over here.
Yes, I've got myself a lovely spot here next to DX Engineering. And, it's going to be a good show. Looking forward to the rest of the day and the weekend.
Right. So I believe you may have a new product you're going to tell me about.
Yes, we have. As you know, we brought out our EQ20 range of parametric equalizers. Yeah. That was something that was fed back from amateurs. Namely, the main reason is to improve the listening experience by being able to adjust the specific frequencies to suit your own hearing. So you can boost or cut any frequency within 100 Hertz to 10K by plus or minus 10 dB. So the idea is you've got two inputs. You can have a standard sort of radio input, and the outputs are on a Class D amplifier. So when we first designed it, it was connecting passive speakers up, and that was what we thought everyone would do. But then we've had feedback over the last year that a number of Amazon people have got their own powered speakers or amplifier, and the problem with the Class D amplifier is that if you ground the outputs, you can blow the amplifier up. So we just brought out a little box called the LLC1, and it's a line level converter. It's got isolation transformers inside and some components, but you connect it to the speaker output, and then it allows you to connect your own powered speakers or amplifier at a line level to your EQ20 range of products. So it's just adding a bit more flexibility to the unit and opening it up to people that have got their own speakers.
Well, that sounds really interesting. And, you know, you've been in this business of sound. Sorry, I'm breaking up your stand. You've been in this business of sorting out sound problems for years, and you're obviously in touch with what the amateur wants, so it sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, we tend to work with clubs and people, and we have a number of amateurs that we run things by, we get feedback. And as a small British manufacturing company, if someone comes and asks you a question or says, we think you should do this, we look into it. So the latest thing we're doing at the moment is we're looking at
well, I think the boys are busting in, but it's nice to see you. No problem. That's all right.
The boys from Moonraker have just interrupted our interview, but never mind.
We'll rough Moonraker up later.
So what, you know, with the parametric equalization unit, we've had feedback about customers that actually have got hearing issues that's different in each ear. So it's raised a situation that, although with the unit at the moment you can change the frequencies to suit your own hearing, what if your hearing is different in one ear than the other? So it's sort of food for thought. We're going to look at maybe in the future separate parametric equalization for each ear. So we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't had feedback from a customer. And as a small company, it doesn't take long for us to react and bring stuff to market and make improvements. So it's very useful, and we work closely with clubs and amateurs to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And as I say, I'm not getting any younger myself, and I know I got hearing defects. So, you know, as we get older, our hearing does drop off, and certainly being able to do something about it is good news.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we didn't really shout about on our ParaPro EQ20 range initially, but the fact is it's got a high performance, powerful audio system inside, and with the parametric equalization you can literally move that center frequency to either boost the speech and lift the speech, or if there's a tone or some sort of annoying hiss that's by the speech, you can then attenuate that, and on its own suddenly lifts the speech. So there's like two ways to use the unit, and we're finding out from feedback from customers, it's working well.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I believe you've got a new product here today, a new set of headphones,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, we have. We've got some headphones, and again, this is something we looked at for a year to try and find the right pair. Everything we make has a headphone socket, and most radios and transceivers have a headphone socket. But can you find a good quality pair of headphones? No, I mean, there's not a lot around. So I spent about a year, and we found a pair that we branded BHI that have been reviewed by the RSGB in the latest Radcom, and they're really comfortable, and they're long wearing, so you don't get earache. $19.95 including VAT, so they're really good value and lightweight and foldable. So yeah, that's the new product we've got out as well.
Well, that sounds good, because half the problem with wearing earphones is if they're not comfortable or they poor quality sound, that just ruins it. So I mean, the amount of work you've done in investigating this, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, we must have had about 10 pairs from 10 different suppliers. And the thing with sort of overseas sourcing is everything goes down the Bluetooth route. So everyone wanted to sell me a Bluetooth headset, and I said, I don't want a Bluetooth headset. I want a pair of standard headphones with a wire on that are foldable, that are comfortable. And the one thing that the RSGB review found in Radcom was actually when you put them over your ears, they've got quite a bit of noise elimination on their own. Even though they're not noise cancelling headphones, they do keep quite a lot of the outside noise away when you're listening. So they've got quite a good effect on that for a low-cost pair of headphones. We're very happy.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to hope you have a great show here for the next few days. We caught up with you earlier.
I forgot to mention, they're called the HP1, and they're available from all our sort of standard dealers and on our website.
Yeah, well, you heard it first from Graham here. HP1s, get them from Graham or from dealers throughout the world that deal with BHI products. Graham, I assume we're going to meet up with you in Newark this year, hopefully, and I hope you have a good show there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hopefully we might have something else to sort of tell you about in Newark.
Oh, that sounds good. Now, I'm going to warn you, we have Mrs. B with us. Now, don't look too worried, it's Colin's mum, she's coming next time. So it'll be fun, but I promise I won't let her abuse you.
Okay, you'll have to be on your best behaviour then, won't you?
I will, I'm afraid. That's going to blow it for me. But listen, thanks very much for your time, Graham, and have a great show.
Thank you very much, boys, for coming to see me and taking the time to let me talk about our lovely products.
Yeah. Thank you, Graham.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
For the first time ever, we got to speak to Martin Dew and, more interestingly, to Howard Nurse, Whiskey 6 Hotel November, in relation to their remote control option. And as I say, Howard is the designer, and we got an interesting chat with him about designing this product, which is available now for about $300.
Right, now I'm with Howard here, W6HN. Howard, you're the designer of this lovely piece of equipment.
Guilty as charged, Martin, and how nice to meet you, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you too. Now this, when I spoke to Martin Dew a few minutes ago, he was telling us that this is the absolute best design thing for operating abroad.
Well, Martin has never been known for being modest, and but I'm very pleased that MFJ decided to carry this as a product. It's something I've been working on and thinking about for years. So to see it come into fruition and be here for sale is pretty exciting.
It sounds it. Now you tell me it's a shack computer. It's a very small little box. It's probably about 3 inches high and probably about a rectangular 5x4 on the top. Connects to the internet and a cat cable, and you control your rig anywhere in the world.
Yes, it will work with any device that has a browser. So that could be an iPhone, it could be a Droid, it could be an iPad, a tablet, a PC, or a laptop. Any device that has a browser, since the server is just like an internet server. It's browser-based. So it does everything that it does through an internet browser. Makes it very powerful. It allows you to have multiple connections to multiple radios, multiple accounts set up so you can have several users using it. It's like a Swiss Army knife of station control.
Yeah. Now looking behind you, you have the on-screen display, and it looks very clean and tidy. That looks very intuitive.
It is. It's a very simple interface. It's easy to get going, easy to use. Everything is pretty much push button controlled. You've got pre-built buttons for bands and modes. You've got user-defined macros that you can set up to do anything you want, from sending CW to controlling special functions in your radio. You can tune the frequency by twiddling a knob or pushing on buttons. It's very simple, very easy to use, but very clean.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Now, on some software control radios, and if I'm asking you an awkward question, I apologise, but on some radios you can get these external tuning knobs. Do you envisage having something along that line soon?
You could, but it's. I hope you have a chance to try the one behind me. It's very smooth, right on the device itself. It's almost like a physical knob.
Yeah, fine. As I say, I wasn't picking apart on that one. It's just something that came into my mind as we're talking. Now, the model number for this, it's an MFJ
1234. It's a
1234. 1234.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, I won't forget that model number. I mean, that is you did well getting that one. Since this is your baby, did you have to fight Martin for that one?
Oh, no, I was very surprised. Martin came up with a number for it, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, in fact, this is on sale for just a shade under $300 for a Shack control computer, a Shack factory server. And you said you can do other things on it. You can do email and other bits and pieces as well as control your radio.
Absolutely. Word processing. All the digital modes are supported through FL Digi, through JT Call, through WSJTX. So it's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. And because of the size, looking at it, you're not going to have lots of power drain. And this is a sort of device you'd be able to leave on 24/7, I suggest.
Yes, it's 10 watts. So that's a lot different from a PC running 24/7, but you can also turn your radio on and off from the remote interface. So the radio doesn't need to be running when you log in and push a button and up it comes.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, as I say, I think the guys must start looking out for it. You've got it in your hand. You can see it's not that massive a device, but I think it might have quite a massive input to MFJ. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be as much loved as, say, the analyzers, the 259, 269 range.
Well, it's a tough goal to beat, but I'm going to work on it.
I hope so. Yeah. Listen, Howard, thank you very much for your time. And as I say, thanks for your time today telling us about this.
Thank you very much, Martin. And again, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you.
Yeah, cheers. So.
Hello everybody, this is Frank, K4FMH Fox Mike Hotel here at the Hamvention 2019. It's a little warm, but the things going on are very, very hot. And yeah, I'm here with a plaque that I just happened to run into, and it says CW Ops presented to Hans Summers G0UPL in recognition of outstanding achievement in advancing the art of CW, May 2019. But you know what's better than me being here with this plaque? I'm here with Hans. Hans, listen, thank you and welcome to the ICQ podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be interviewed by you again. Not for the first. How many times have we done this? 4 times? I don't know. It's really nice.
But you know, things change, and that's one of the neat things about QRP Labs is you've always got something coming out. Now, let me start from the beginning. I first knew about you because I was interested in Whisper, and you came out with, in my opinion, what was the first kit that would legitimately do Whisper and do all bands, and it would do it without a whole lot of spurious nonsense. You had a clock, you knew about GPS and timekeeping and so on. Was that kind of your first major product?
Actually, the first product was in 2010 at Dayton. I did a talk at FDIM in 2010, the 4 days in May event, the QRP seminar, about QRSS transmitting in QRSS modes, and the first kit was a very small QRSS transmitter that I produced 100 of those with my friend G0CIB to sell after that event. And then from there, that developed on to what we called the Ultimate QRSS transmitter kit, which included Whisper. That involved the Ultimate 2 and then the Ultimate 3. And then since early 2015, we've been selling the Ultimate 3S kit, which we're still selling today, which is the QRSS Whisper transmitter kit. Yeah.
Very good. And my recognition of the Ultimate QRSS kit is that's kind of typical of the lag time between something that's innovative and when people really kind of see it and understand it.
Yeah. I mean, we've sold thousands of these now. They're very, very popular.
And and listen, I have one, and it is the bomb. It's what you want to do if you want to do, particularly Whisper. And a lot of people want to do that, check propagation and that kind of thing. All right, so you've got a lot of other things that you've done, and I want to let you talk about those, but I want to also include, for the retro fans of APRS, that's a joke, you've got a new tracker, because that's the thing, is getting a tracker out for a lot of public service events. Do you put a $400 handheld and something in this kind of thing? So I want to make sure we include that, Hans, when we get there. So after the Whisper product, what was kind of the next thing, or what's the most recent thing you've released?
So after the Whisper product, I came with, we basically increased the range of what you could do with the Whisper transmitter. So I added a relay switch kit, low pass filter kit, receiver kit, a 5-watt amplifier kit. And so it became a very modular system that you could put together as you wished. And then people, the interesting thing, people started using all of those modules in their own homebrew projects as well as with the Whisper transmitter. So that was a really nice thing. Then the next really big thing was the QCX-CW transceiver kit. This was introduced for the YOTA 2017 summer camp, which was hosted by the RSGB in the UK in August 2017. This has gone on to become really the bestseller of all of the products. I've sold now over 7,300 of those in under 2 years.
If I can interrupt, if I were a cartoonist, I would have a picture of Hans running down the road with a horde of hams wanting to know, when is the QCX, when is the next new tweak going to come out? Because you've been chased in the marketplace over this product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been tremendously popular, and indeed that's why I got the award from the CW Ops Club. It certainly is not for my operating proficiency. I was laughing with those guys, the only reason I'm here at your banquet dinner is to receive this award because I do not qualify for entrance. They have a 25 words per minute threshold to get in the club.
Right.
I max out at something like 15 words a minute. I spend all my time designing and building and supporting, and I don't get on air as much as I should, so I'm really not a great operator. So they gave me that award in recognition of the QCX design, which has encouraged a lot of people to come into CW and try it because it includes so many nice features and the price is so good.
Well, here's an analogy. Steve Jobs and that guy over at Microsoft, they might not have been the biggest computer users, but they really helped computers use computers.
Right.
And in a way, that's kind of what you're doing.
I like the analogy. And I like to be mentioned in the same sentence as those guys.
Well, and one of them is no longer with us, so I want to keep you from that status for years to come.
The light APRS, you wanted to know about that one. I have some here. We've sold a few. This is a product, it's not my design. This is a product by a friend of mine. So I live in Turkey, and a friend of mine, Mustafa TA2MUN, he designed this with his friend, whose call I can't quite recall. And we're just distributing that for him and marketing that for him.
Yeah.
So I have all the facilities and live in the same country as him, so we just help him out with the marketing and distribution. But it's really a full-featured APRS tracker. It's also less than half price of the next competitor in the market. So we sell this for $100 now, and that's less than the two major competitors for that. It's a 1 watt APRS transceiver on VHF. It's frequency agile and it's all open source.
Well, one thing, a lot of people, and I made the joke about the retro APRS. It is not retro at all. In fact, at Hamvention, I missed it. I had it on my schedule to go yesterday. Bob Bernanga, the developer of APRS, the protocol, was giving a talk about some of the new innovations and the new messaging systems in APRS. So APRS is not dead. It's a community thing. You don't have APRS just by one person having a tracker. You've got to have a networked, RF networked, and internet-based network infrastructure. And we have a lot of disparate development in the United States. But as these things get out there and as the price points get like yours, the best thing going, because you can't buy much of a ham device these days for less than $100, and nobody could argue with the price. Hans, I want to ask you something about your business development and then make a couple of comments.
While we're still on that topic, Bob, daddy of APRS, I sold him 2 QCX kits last year.
Very good for Bob. Yeah. Hey, I think we got a new name, Daddy Bob. I think Daddy Bob's got a new handle if he were there. Right. Talk about your business development. You're developing a kit and then following something else and getting very popular. You know who that sounds like?
No.
Martin Jew.
Oh,
he started off with a $13.95 kit.
I sold him some QCX kits last year too.
Very, very good. Very, very good. And so one of the things that Martin did that it appears that you are doing is you're building your company slowly, but at price points that will almost guarantee a market. And you got to have a market, unlike the angel fund investors, where they plan for 10 years out when they got to finish the first year. And so it seems to me you're building a great business foundation. Is that on spot with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like the organic growth model without taking on investors and a huge project like that, bit by bit by bit. So I'm gradually, I don't like to stand still. I keep trying to develop something new. And the next big thing is the QSX transceiver that I'm working on. Each time you develop something new, you don't stop selling the old products. You keep selling those. Obviously, the sales tail off, but they never go down to zero. So I like that model. We started with a simple QSS kit and then the ultimate kit and all the other accessories. And every time we launch a new kit, you get a big spike in sales, but it comes down and down and keeps at a steady level. And it's quite a nice business growth model. I'm not an economist or anything, with all the formal business management training, but it seems to make sense to me, this model.
Well, I have a very good architect friend who was one of the best architects that Yale ever trained in. I built a house about 7 years ago with my wife, and here's something he said. He asked me, "You're not going to get an architect to design your house, are you?" and in a way, sometimes the best management for guerrilla business development style, that is outside the box, are people who aren't trained in the box themselves. I will tell you that my friend Martin Jew made a comment to me, this: the best investors in a company are the customers buying your product. Listen, I want to thank you for being with us, Hans, and let me comment. I really think that you and Farhan in India with the BitX and UBitX, you have captured kind of that bleeding edge where it's not a big company with multi-store brick and mortar and all this, but you've captured it at the heart and the traditional spirit of amateur radio. And when you have a decline in those sales, since you've made it open source, unforeseen to you, perhaps, someone else comes up with a new tweak and then boom, you are back in business with an older product because somebody's added a new spin for it. Anything else you want our listeners to know about QRP Labs? And me too. When's that voice guy coming out on the QCX?
The QSX, you mean?
My apologies, QSX.
Yeah, I have the prototype here. I've been showing people the prototype. There's still a few more months development on it. It's a really, really ambitious project. I'm aiming to deliver all modes, so CW, sideband, AM, FM, and standalone RTTY and PSK31. You can plug in a USB keyboard. It's got an embedded SDR in it with digital signal processing, all the filtering, AGC, speech compression, noise reduction, notch filtering, all the things you expect from DSP. Covers 10 meters to 160 meters. It has a USB sound card emulation, so you can plug it to a PC with a USB cable and you can do all the digital modes, SDR software on the PC. So it's a really full-featured radio with very top performance, but I'm trying to deliver it at 10 times, 20 times cheaper than anything else with that performance. So the target price is $150 for the whole thing. So it's a really ambitious project, and I've still got another few months to iron out all the details.
Well, here's a suggestion. On the QSX project, sometimes, like in the SDR world, the open SDR, they would name a product Hermes or whatever. I'd suggest you call it Ambition.
It's a good one. We'll have to pay you commission on that now.
Hey, I give that away free. And look, I just want you to know, to our team, you are one of the heroes in the marketplace because you're doing it right and you're building it from the ground up, and we wish you much success, Hans. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to meet any of your team. Really.
Thank you very much. All right, this is Frank, K4MH Fox Mike Hotel for the ICQ Podcast team.
The ICQ Podcast. Getting it said for amateur radio.
Well, we wrap up the show here as we record this in Chicago. Actually, this could be the first time for an international North America record. We're both together in a different continent, but there you go, there's a first for you. Kenny Johns sent us an email, Whiskey November 8 Yankee, very complimentary about the show. Thank you very much, Kenny. He says that as is a consistent, constant, stable format, not opinionated, criticising our national organisations or others. He said, while other shows have come and gone, making accusations, inflammatory remarks, we just carry on, as I say, doing what we do. So he's also been checking out our YouTube videos, which you can do by going to youtube.com/ICQ podcast, and so you can check out that for there. So Kenny, thanks a lot for your very kind words on the show. That means a lot to us. And Kenny also asked well about finding the very old episodes, all the ones back 11 years ago. There is a link available. You find this by going to icqpodcast.libsyn.com, where all the shows are listed there. The RSS feed only has the last 200 in it. I think they're all on the ICQ Podcast website, but if you actually go to that Libsyn address, they're actually in an easier format. You can download them a little bit easier, I'd say, from there. So that's one of the benefits of being a listener-supported show is we don't have to necessarily track download numbers for advertising. So I'm more than happy for you to go along to that Libsyn page, find out what you find interesting, and say download some of those old shows. As I say, please don't criticise too much about our old audio performances. There are some ropey ones in there, but say you're more than welcome to check that out. Hamvention was phenomenal. There's probably no way of putting it. We've, as I say, we could probably spend a whole episode talking about Hamvention, but we'll try not to. But we would like to thank everyone who stopped us, said hello, thanked us for the ICQ podcast show. There were far too many of you to list for fear of missing someone. So please let everyone know who stopped us were humble beyond words at the number who stopped us and chatted to us and took time out your day to just say hi, hello, and what you enjoyed about the show. And also, guys, don't be afraid to say who your favourite presenter is. You know, it's a bit like, say, supporting your favourite sports team, but, you know, there's always a favourite player as well. So we don't get too hurt when someone says, hey, where's Leslie? Or where's Dan, when Dan was off doing his course on the Saturday, or whatever it be. You know, it's always great to hear what you're going to. But certainly that, for me, was certainly one of the highlights, Dad. As I say, just the number of listeners, I mean, don't go, we've had it at Free Charm, we've had it at UK Hamfest, but in Dayton, the pure volume and numbers of people.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Colin. I'd say probably 40% of our time was talking to listeners, and that to me was one of the most important things of going to Hamvention. Is if I was there and people wanted to talk to me, at least I'd make myself available. So thanks very much. We've had some interesting feedback as well, which is fair, and but it was great. It was purely great, and for those of you I might have wound up just a little bit in fun. I don't think your listeners, but there were a few people I wound up in fun as we're going around, and one story I cannot tell on air because we have a clean rating and Colin's shaking his head vaguely across the table, but catch me one day and ask me what was my favourite wind-up at Hamvention, and I will tell you. But all in all, thoroughly enjoyed it. I thank all the podcasting groups that spoke to us, and all the manufacturers who spoke to us and made us welcome. But most especially, the most important one was our listeners who came and spoke to us. It does actually make you feel really humble when people come up to you and say, I recognise your voice. And yeah, I couldn't get away from it. Even if I didn't have an orange T-shirt on, I think I'd have been spotted. Back to you, Colin.
No, certainly so. So yeah, guys, it's a massive positive. There are a few people we will thank. You probably are aware we had a donation opportunity for people to donate towards new ICQ podcast T-shirts, and we're very happy to say that we made sure we had photographs done with Stan, Kilo 3, Juliet Sierra Mike, and Marion Whiskey 3, Papa Sierra Yankee. Sorry, guys, I know you got new call signs because you just upgraded, and I forgot to record them down. As I say, there was so much going on, we do apologise. Here's a new one for you. Husband and wives that ham radio together stay together.
And both extra licenses now.
Exactly. George, Kilo Juliet 6, Victor Uniform. Jeremy, Kilo Foxtrot 7, India Juliet Zulu. And Scott, Kilo Alpha 9, Papa. So, guys, we met you at the show. Your names on our sleeves. So it's only right to let you know. I say that donation there. You saw your names on our sleeves on our new shirts, and they're there for you. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed the interviews from Hamvention. The videos will be up on YouTube, as you mentioned. YouTube.com/ICQ podcast is the place to go to check that out. As I say, as always, all the links and information you need is on the podcast page, icqpodcast.com. Check out the Facebook group, sign up for the newsletter, all the bits and pieces you can do in the meantime. Now, we've had a wonderful donation section this episode, but guys, I can't stress you, again, to keep us advert free, we need to keep things moving along nicely. So we will thank John Stevens, Alpha Bravo 9 Juliet Sierra, Michael Ladd, Kilo Delta 2, Kilo Oscar Golf, Scott McDonald, Kilo Alpha 9 Papa, and his wife Sarah, Will Chrisman, Whiskey Delta 5 India, and Tague Carlson, Kilo 1 Sierra Echo India, for their kind donations this episode. As I say, thanks a lot, guys, for supporting the show and keeping us advert free. That was certainly one of the feedbacks, Dad, from the show, was it as well? People saying how they enjoyed the fact that the podcast didn't have adverts in it, and how much they enjoyed a show that just flowed naturally, and as I say, just a bit like a virtual club meeting.
Certainly is, and we intend to keep it that way. We don't do this for money. It's handy when we can break even occasionally. But in fairness, Colin and I just thoroughly enjoy doing it. And if it wasn't for the support of our listeners and the support of our presenters that give their time for free, there wouldn't be an ICQ podcast. But I think the thing is, we all thoroughly enjoy doing it, and it's our way of putting back into the hobby. So I'm glad you guys carry on listening.
Yeah, I dread to think if anyone tells our XYLs how much we might have spent on this trip, but hey, we've had fun along the way as well. Talking about our presenters that donate their time and say their money to the show, we'd like to thank Bill Barnes, November 3, Juliet India X-Ray, Edmund, Mike 0, Mike November Golf, and Leslie Golf 0, Charlie India Bravo for taking part in the News Roundtable in this episode. As I say, and as I go through the list of thanks, you know what we have to do now? Because we're not here. Mrs. B obviously is 4,000 miles away and we can't make a cup of tea. We're going to have to find a chocolate biscuit to take back to her and make her a cup of tea when you land on Sunday morning.
I think we'll do that. But just for giggles, I think we're okay. We ring her. She won't be asleep. So we'll give her a phone call in a minute and wish her all the best as well. And for those of you who are interested, Mrs. B will be at the UK Hamfest in Europe. In the UK, so watch out for her. Her shirt actually says Mrs. B on it instead of a call sign, so there's no missing.
She was very chuffed with that. So guys, we're going to bid you all 73s. Check out the usual links, and we'll be back on our usual 2-week schedule with an episode coming up in a fortnight's time. So continue to enjoy the show, guys, and look forward to catching you again in a fortnight's time. 73s.
73.